Hello and welcome to Sideline Story, your destination for sports news, analysis and discussions. I'm Yang Guang. This week we preview the NBA playoffs. Who are the teams to watch? Are the Lakers ruled out already against Houston Rockets? To unpack the questions, I'm joined here with my fantastic co-hosts Tian Yu and Brandon Yates. Alright, the NBA is entering the playoff time, the most exciting 2 months. In the first round, without a doubt, the most anticipating clash must be the LA Lakers against Houston Rockets.
Yeah.
The first meeting between Kevin Durant and LeBron James in the postseason since that 2018 finals. But along with that blockbuster encounter, Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves' injuries have definitely thrown a shadow to the Lakers' playoff journey. So Tianyu, with Luka reportedly sidelined for at least the opening few games of the first round series, does that automatically rule out the Lakers' chances of making a deep run in the playoffs? Because even if he can return at some point, the Lakers might be in a 2-1 or even 3-0 deficit.
Yeah, I think so. It's definitely a huge blow to the Lakers. I mean, even though LeBron James kind of been the face of this team ever since he joined the LA, this season is basically been Luka Doncic carrying a massive share of the offensive side, of the offensive workload, both in scoring and creating chances for everyone. When you watch the Lakers this year, I think the difference is pretty obvious. With Luka on the floor, they look like a real contender, but without him, it's almost a different team. Now, of course, I mean, LeBron can still give you huge moments. We have to admit that. But at the age of 41, asking him to be, the main creator, the main scorer, is too much. On Houston's side, I think they're much younger, deeper, and healthier. This series really comes down to whether the Lakers can survive long enough for Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves to return. And if one of them comes back later in the matchup, I think LA still has a chance.
Right, so unfortunately, the playoff series is a best of 7 instead of best of 70. Otherwise, Luka can come back. I still believe JJ Redick lets Luka play too many minutes this season. That led to his, leg injury. Brandon, looking at their first round matchup between LA and Houston, will the Rockets' athleticism be too much to handle for the Lakers without Luka's offensive, creation, at least in the first few games?
Well, especially with, the mitigating factor, like you said, it's the best of 7, and I'm thinking to a couple of our sports teams, like Bayern Munich, Real Madrid. I'm sure you guys would also want a best of 7. I think that would make things a bit more of an even playing field. And also just over the weekend, my favorite rugby team from Cape Town, the Stormers, lost in the last second by like 1 point in a game that they should have won. And I thought, wow, if this is thinking now, if this was a best of 7 series, we would win 6-1, or something like that. So yeah, the best of 7 element of this sport and the playoffs, I think definitely favors Houston at this point because, like you've mentioned, their youthful roster, the incredible athleticism and energy that they're playing with at the moment. And beyond that, having such an experienced head and, one of the greatest NBA players of the last decade in Kevin Durant, I think it really does favor them because, losing Luka is one thing, but losing Luka and Austin Reeves, I think is just a step too far at this point. I think especially with LeBron at the stage of his career that he's at, even though he's still having an immense impact for somebody of his age and experience level, I think he definitely needs all-star quality support cast around him, and Luka Doncic was putting out MVP numbers. I think that he had a 60-point game in March. Over the last 6 road games, he was averaging over 40 points, along with his, I think it was 33-point average over the course of the season. So yeah, definitely MVP numbers and arguably the best player in the league prior to his injury, I would say, along with, Jokic and a couple of others. The only way that the Lakers can somehow have a chance of getting through the series is to extend it to a game 5 or game 6, which I think at this point is going to be a huge stretch for them because I think that the Rockets are definitely going to smell blood, and I think Kevin Durant and the youthful squad around him are going to be thinking we can run these guys off the court. We may not have the star quality that the Lakers have when they all fit. but we can definitely outrun them. We can, have more energy than them, and I think that physically they can be quite dominant over this LA team. But look, if LA does somehow manage to extend it to a game five or game six, and even get Luka back at like 70 to 80%. Look, even Luka on one leg is better than most NBA players, you know. So I think that if they can just get him back somehow to play some sort of role, even if he doesn't do that much, I just think having Luka on the court, you know, other teams are just like, okay, Luka's back. Even if he's not doing much, I think he becomes like a distraction even. That's going to be the key is, extending it to a game five or game six, getting Luka back on the court, even if he's in a cast or, walking around, not running around. And, lean on LeBron James to control the tempo a little bit and maybe slow things down and try and reduce the athletic threat that Houston, poses, as well as, somehow trying to stop Kevin Durant from just, sinking shots. They're probably also going to try and rely on LeBron and the entire Lakers roster to try and like kind of half court slow down, really try and control the tempo of these games coming up. So if they manage to do that, I think they've got a bit of a shout. But I think on paper, at this point in time, I think it's looking very, very problematic for the Lakers at the moment. I think that any person looking at the series right now would have a hard time giving LA any sort of chance of getting out of this series.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. My perspective, missing Luka Doncic equals death penalty for LA in the playoff.
Yeah.
His, individual scoring capability as the top scorer in the league in the regular season aside, he's also the system of this team.
Yeah.
Without him, the Lakers just don't know how to run properly on the offensive side. I mean, yes, the Lakers have developed a relatively good, defense system based on their rotation, and it worked very well, especially in the regular season against Houston when they double-teamed Kevin Durant. But at the end of the day, when you expose a weak spot on the offensive side, it would eventually drag you down. That's my prediction. We would likely see some, 90-point game, 80-point games, but I don't see Houston will be troubled that much in this best-of-7 series. Now, turning to the defending champions, the Oklahoma City Thunder. They were arguably the most dominant team in the regular season this year. But Tianyu, can they carry that level of play into the postseason games when, half-court execution, star power, and experience matter more?
Yeah, I think like you said, OKC is still the game to beat. They've been the most dominant team in the league all season, and I think what impresses me the most is they've done it even while dealing with injuries here and there. I mean, the system is just so solid, and their depth has really shown out in the games throughout this year. SGA is still the engine of the team. He's been unbelievably consistent, scoring over 30, dropping like 30 points plus is like a guaranteed task for him every night. So then
even before the tip-off, OKC already got 30 points.
Yes, and then you have Chet Holmgren and Jalen Williams around him, who remain absolutely crucial to how this team functions. So yeah, I think what makes OKC, this team, so scary is their structure. Even when their key players miss out games, they still find ways to, just win because, everyone understands their role perfectly.
Right. I mean, I really like how they play as a team. I mean, yes, SGA can average 30 points per game, but it's still a team built by collective efforts.
Yeah.
Everyone can dribble, everyone can handle the ball, everyone can pass, they are very willing to pass.
Yes.
And everyone can make contributions on the defensive side of things. Yeah. It reminds me of the Detroit Pistons in the early 2000s when, the collective play really peaked at that time. I don't think fans need to worry about them. I mean, OKC in the first 2 rounds of the Western Conference playoffs. But when it matters would be the conference finals against potentially the Denver Nuggets or the San Antonio Spurs. Let's say when the game or the whole series is down to the final minutes, I guess this team-based play can be challenged. The only reliable player they can find out to score is still SGA.
Yeah.
So I guess the efficiency of OKC would not be that good compared to their regular season performance. Brandon, as OKC tries to defend their title, is the road actually harder this time around? And which team poses the biggest threat to them in the West?
Yeah, look, I think it might be a little bit more difficult now because I think as pundits now, we're talking about their style of play and which players are the most effective and what they can do and what they offer as through their star players, through Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Chet Holmgren, etc. But what they also offer as a unit on both ends of the court, and I think what we are now able to see as pundits, other teams and other scouts and other coaches are also able to see, which might have not been a factor for OKC last season and in previous seasons. So I think that's another thing. They're a bit more, let's say, they're fully scouted now. Let's put it that way. I think that I don't think there's going to be any surprises. I think we are going to see them get to the Western Conference Finals. I think a couple of teams that could potentially cause them an issue. I think that if the Nuggets do get there, I think that's going to be an amazing series to watch. I think that Nikola Jokic and a couple of these really elite NBA superstars that have kind of flown under the radar in the last 2 seasons are really excited to potentially come up against SGA and OKC, and I think that would be incredible. So for me, I think the Nuggets would pose the biggest threat to them. At this point in time, there haven't been any surprises or shocks for OKC. It's kind of been business as usual. I think the way that their season has been progressing is what their coaching staff have predicted, and I think this is the outcome that they've wanted. It'll be interesting to see if they can deal with any hiccups, if they can deal with injuries or if they can deal with really, like I said, defensive elite teams. I'm not necessarily the most excited to see them come up against elite level contenders yet. I'll be more excited about that as the postseason progresses. I think at this point in time, what I really want to see is how OKC deals with stumbling blocks or hurdles, which I don't think that they've really seen yet this season. Like I said, it's kind of been business as usual. So I kind of want to see some surprises and difficult moments thrown into the mix and see how these, champions deal with adversity. And I think that's going to be the most exciting part about OKC in the postseason.
Right. Maybe there will be some, upsets caused by the lower seeds.
Yeah.
All right. Before we move on, here's a quick review of the biggest sports headlines in China and around the world for the past week. Bayern Munich has reached the UEFA Champions League semi-finals after edging Real Madrid 4-3 in a chaotic quarter-final second leg at home to complete a 6-4 aggregate victory. The two teams offered a scoring frenzy in the first half with Real leading 3-2. The turning point came late in the game as substitute Eduardo Camavinga was sent off for a second yellow card after handling the ball to stop a quick Bayern restart. Bayern took full advantage. Luis Diaz struck the 89th minute to seal the deal before Michael Olise scored another in stoppage time. Bayern coach Vincent Kompany praised his players' resilience.
The reaction 2-2, 3-2, and then again 3-3, and at the end to just continue and get this game over the line. So it's also something to be proud about. I don't think you start this character signs, this belief on the 15th of April. We've done it so many times this season.
Bayern will next face Paris Saint-Germain, who knocked out Liverpool 4-0 on aggregate after a 2-0 victory at Anfield. In an all-Spanish clash, Atletico Madrid earned a 3-2 aggregate win over Barcelona, despite a 2-1 loss at home, and is into the semi-finals of the UEFA Champions League for the first time since 2017. Arsenal rounded out the last 4 teams after a goalless draw at home against the Sporting and a 1-0 aggregate win. In Major League Soccer, Javier Mascherano has stepped aside as manager of Inter Miami for personal reasons. Mascherano led Florida side to its first MLS Cup title last year with a 3-1 win over the Vancouver Whitecaps in the final. Marie-Louise Ita has made history as the first woman to coach a men's Bundesliga club after Union Berlin appointed her for the rest of the season. She replaces Steffen Baumgart, dismissed following a 3-1 loss to bottom-placed Heidenheim. Yannick Sinner beat defending champion Carlos Alcaraz in Monte Carlo to win his first Clay Masters title and reclaim the world #1 ranking.
Very, very happy. Try to increase my level match after match, which I've done, so I'm very happy about that. And winning my first big title on this surface means also a lot to me. So yeah, it was an incredible week.
This was Sinner's fourth straight Masters 1000 title and his eighth overall. Danish shuttler Victor Axelsen has announced his retirement from professional badminton at the age of 32, citing a persistent back injury. Axelsen, one of badminton's leading players, spent a total of 183 weeks as the BWF men's singles world number 1, winning 2 Olympic gold medals, 2 world championship titles, and 3 European championship crowns. China will send 171 athletes to the Asian Beach Games in Sanya, Hainan Province. The 9-day games will kick off next Wednesday. Welcome back. Now, switching to the Eastern Conference, my focus has always been on the Boston Celtics since Jason Tatum was back from that horrible injury. That gives Boston the championship winning quality, I would say. So, Tianyu, does his return instantly make the Celtics the favorites to come out from the East again, or have the number 1 seeded Pistons along with other top seeds like the Knicks or the Cavaliers close the gap enough to make this a real battle?
Yeah, I think it definitely puts Boston right back at the top of the Eastern Conference conversation. Yeah, even without Jason Tatum, for I think the majority of the season, they still managed to finish near the top of the East, and which says a lot about how strong their system is. Jaylen Brown has been incredibly reliable throughout the season. The bench has given them real depth. And also their head coach, Joe Mazzulla's system just continues to bring out the best of every single player on the roster. So now with Tatum back, it just gives them that superstar ceiling. I think Tatum's the kind of player who can completely change a playoff series. And I think the scary thing about him is how quickly he adapted himself to the game, to back to the NBA level intensity.
It's like he never left.
Yes, after considering the how serious he got injured in that series in the playoffs, that just says a lot about how much potential this Boston team has right now. And as for the challenges, I think that like you said, the Pistons have definitely being one of the biggest surprises this season. They are the black horse of the season, and I think they kind of gave me the impression that the Pacers had on me last year. They may not have a player that's putting up 30 plus every night, but they are winning with team basketball, constant movement and balance on the roster. There are multiple players in the team that's averaging double digits, and it really shows how connected they are as a team. But that said, I think playoff experience still matters. Like you said, that's where Boston probably has the edge.
I always believe the playoffs is all about star power, and the Celtics is the most star-studded team in the Eastern Conference. Maybe the New York Knicks have 1 or 2 chances to knock them down because they did it last year.
Yeah.
So that would be a very interesting potential semi-final showdown. Brandon, Piston, Tianyu mentioned it, they topped the East standings in the regular season. But it's been a while since, they went deep in the playoffs. When we put them and Boston together, how much does Boston's playoff experience matter compared to Detroit's, courage and hunger?
Oh, it's massive. I think Detroit and Cade Cunningham has been a great story throughout the regular season, and I think that what they've been able to do in the grit that they've showcased, which is kind of synonymous with Pistons basketball. They are known to be one of those teams that just kind of have relied on just real mental strength and a difficult team to play against. And when they come up against superstars, they create a very difficult, rough environment and make it very challenging for these superstar players to showcase their abilities, which is always fantastic to see. Like an unstoppable force against an immovable object. I love watching those kind of matchups, kind of like a Atletico Madrid kind of setup, I guess, would also be a fair comparison with the Pistons,
Yeah.
But I think that's also, again, I think that's more of like a regular season sort of thing. Like you said, Yang Guang, I think in the postseason, it really does become about star quality, and also squad depth. I think that's also something that we forget about with the Celtics. I mean, just the amount of experience and the amount of players that they have that can come in for like 10 or 20 minutes and have been, in the NBA and have showed up at multiple playoffs. I think that's also going to be something that is an incredibly boosting factor for them as they go throughout this postseason and try and get to the Eastern Conference Finals. The Pistons I think are still definitely a team to not kind of roll your eyes at. I think that they are still a team that are going to pose significant threat, but I think at this point in time the Celtics probably the team that everybody in the league is looking at and thinking, wow, okay, in the East this is probably going to be the team that's going to be the most difficult to come up against. And I think that it's quite difficult to rule that out, especially with the return of Jason Tatum, not just at 40 to 50%. He looks like he's operating at, dare I say it, close to 100%, which is a very scary prospect for any Celtics opponent right now.
Right. Before we wrap things up, enough of a preview. Let's make some review or the summary of Chinese rookie Yang Hansen's first season in the NBA. I still think Yang Hansen's NBA time is far from over, despite some poor numbers this season. I think he deserves much more than that. I mean, 2 points, 1 board in 7 minutes per game. That's his regular season stats. But the real problem is that he plays his best basketball when the ball is in his hand, which I don't see Portland or any other franchise in the NBA right now authorize him at the moment. So he still needs to start from the basics, rebound, defense, night after night.
Yes.
But that's not where he feels the best in his game. I mean, next season would be very crucial for him. First, he needs to do things very well in those areas he's not very good at. Then only after that can he do those things he feels most comfortable or confident with.
Yeah, definitely.
Brandon, I guess the big question to ask here is, has Yang Hansen shown what it takes to stick in the league long term, or is he at risk of fading out once his rookie contract is up?
No, I think he's definitely shown that he has, like you guys said, the mental capability of performing in the NBA, because like you said, he really seems just happy to be there, which I think is the most important factor. I think he's so thrilled to have achieved his dream of just being able to get some NBA minutes. So to be honest, I think even if he does have to return home, or if he doesn't quite make it in NBA, I think he's just happy with having his moments in the NBA. I think that's a big thing for a lot of players from around the world. They don't necessarily want to be in the league for, 10, 20, 30 years. They're just happy to have achieved their dream. And I think that's where he's at right now. Look, I'm not saying that he wants to go home, but I think that he's just very happy to be, living out his NBA dream.
Yeah.
But I also think that his management and, the franchise that he's with, I think that they are specifically giving him difficult tasks, because I think they want to get him up to speed with what is going to be required of him in the NBA. I think there might be a plan to not necessarily showcase his strengths now, but to rather, as harsh as it sounds, not necessarily focus on his weaknesses, but develop his weaknesses so that when his time comes to showcase what he can do, he also has the ability to deal with other roles that, whatever franchise he plays in might require of him to fulfill. And I think that he's done that quite well. I think that whenever he's given minutes on the court, he performs his what seems to be very clear set roles relatively well. I think that there are some limiting factors, that I think he needs to work on, and I think a lot of that is being looked at and trying to be developed at this point in time, such as lateral quickness versus guards, defensive scheme flexibility. So I think there are elements of his game that are being worked on, and I think the reason that we haven't seen the best of him yet is because they feel like there are elements of his game, there are certain elements of his physicality that will limit him to certain roles that a franchise will want to get out of him. And I think that even though that's not necessarily his strength or the way that he wants to play, those are elements of his game that need to be developed to get him the most minutes in the NBA and to be a regular NBA player, which is what I think he really wants right now. I don't think he necessarily wants to, at this early stage in his career, showcase what he is most known for from the G League. I think that he wants to be an NBA big, an NBA regular, and I think that's what is being worked on right now. So even though we haven't seen what we know Yang Hansen can do, I think what we are seeing right now is Yang Hansen being developed into an NBA big that can get regular minutes and be an impactful player for any team that he plays in. So I think that in terms of his development, I think that it's been a very good season for him. And I really hope that he continues in the NBA because I think he's at the very, very early stages of his development of becoming not necessarily a superstar, but I think a regular NBA player that gets regular minutes and is very impactful for any franchise that he finds himself in. It's definitely an upward curve, and I think that he definitely deserves more time to showcase what he can do, to showcase his adaptability, and represents, China on the biggest basketball stage in the world, which I think he fully warrants at this stage.
Right, let's see how things will go for Yang Hansen in the NBA. But before that, a very exciting NBA playoff awaits in the coming month. With that, we end this episode of Sideline Story. Thank you so much for joining us. Subscribe to Sideline Story and leave your comments wherever you listen to podcasts. For more information, you can also check our website at radio.cgtn.com. Until next time, stay on the sidelines with us.